Number 34, made a phone call. Why the heck would making a phone call be brave? It wasn't like when I had to call my mom. This was a regular, everyday kind of phone call. My friend's son was experiencing a mental breakdown. He needed to go to an inpatient mental health facility, and my friend called to ask for advice. She asked if I could call the hospital near our house and find out how it works. Of course I said yes. I always say yes and then figure out how to get someone to do it for me. This one time, I started to ask Rob and then stopped myself. I looked at the phone number and hit send. I asked the questions and found out what we needed to know. This is significant in so many ways. First of all, I hate the phone. I avoid making phone calls even to my closest friends. I especially hate the phone when it's a stranger. I can't see their faces, so it's hard for me to understand social cues. I talk over people. I interrupt. I stumble. I embarrass myself. I hate it. If I had asked Rob to make the call, he would have, by the way, because he loves me and can deny me nothing. He would have had to stop to ask me a million questions, and it would have been a waste of time and frustrating for everyone involved. That never stopped me before, so I must be maturing. As I've gotten this far in the list, some of the brave things I do without even realizing what a big deal it is. This is one of those things. I looked at the phone, looked at Rob standing there, thought ahead to what would transpire, and hit send. When I hung up was when I realized how brave I was. Sometimes bravery is breaking a pattern that has plagued us. Episodes of Broken to Brave are released every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you so much for listening and for joining me on this journey of healing and growth. If you want to go deeper into this story and hear it from a spouse's perspective, my husband and I have a Patreon-only show where we have an extended, behind-the-scenes discussion of every episode, which also posts twice a week. Here's a sample of our latest Patreon-only companion podcast. So here's the thing. So Rob cut his finger off in the snowblower one Christmas Eve when Molly was like a year and a half old.
Christmas memories.
And we had a blizzard the night before.
And I thought decorating the snow was a good idea.
And he was up at early to snow blow everybody's driveways. And he cut his finger off and came to our front door, and I was like, why is somebody ringing the doorbell at 7:30 in the morning? And I opened the front door, and it looked like a massacre.
Yeah.
And they're all over the snow, and he's standing there, and he said, I cut my finger off.
I was pretty calm about everything, and I was not in shock.
You said, call 911. And so I called my mom. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, Rob cut his finger off in the snowblower. And she's like, have you gotten him medical attention? I said, no, he told me to call 911. She goes, then why are you calling me?
And I was like, I don't know. You called your mom and went, what's the number for 911?
Exactly.
I mean, it literally was like that.
Pretty much that bad.
And I'm out there forever, and then you come out and you're like, okay, I'm calling 911 now. And I'm like,
yeah.
What have you been doing for 5 minutes?
I said, wait, she goes, you have to call 911. I was like, yeah, about that. Like, that's a phone call to a stranger, and so I'm like thinking maybe she'll say, oh, I'll be able to call it, but she's never enabled me. So it's not like she was going to do it for me. So I don't know exactly why I did that, but I just panicked and went, he cut his finger off. Maybe she was going to tell me some way around having
to make the phone call.
All you have to do is this and it'll magically make it so you don't have to call 911. But that didn't happen.
No.
So I had to hang up and then call 911. And then they were like, you can't hang up the phone. I'm like, And she's like, can you tell me what is happening? Well, yes, he cut his finger off on the snowblower. But
it's so funny.
I'm sure that was a very interesting phone call for that 911 operator.
I was out there forever, too.
Well, you know what?
This was the longest thing, because you're sitting there. I had a glove on. I couldn't tell if it was cut off. I couldn't tell what was going on. All I knew is
there was blood everywhere.
Bleeding, and something was amiss.
Yes.
And I just sat there kind of holding a fist.
Well, that's why you didn't go into shock, because you didn't know what was wrong yet.
Right.
Usually you go into shock after you've seen it.
Right. And I just sat there holding it going like, Okay. And I remember sitting, we have this little ledge thing in front, but it's only like 3 inches. I am a big guy. That is not enough room for my butt to sit on. But that's what I was kind of sitting on out there because I was afraid if I stood up, I might get woozy and fall over.
Right.
I never did, but I was just afraid of it. And I was like, something's amiss here. So I sat on that, and it was forever.
Yeah.
And then when you came out, okay, I'm going to call 911. I'm like, what?
No, I was pretty quick. It wasn't too bad, but
sure
it just
didn't
felt
feel
like
like
it because you were in an emergency.
Right.
But no, they got there in like 5 minutes.
Right. They were there pretty quickly after the phone call.
I made the phone call, but it takes a little while for them to get all the information, and then they're like,
you
okay.
don't do well in crisis situations.
Oh God, no. So then I should tell the next part of the story. So neither one of our phones were charged. And we had a 1.5-year-old I couldn't take to the hospital. Oh my God.
See, some of this is a blur to me.
So I had to get the next door neighbor, whose name happens to also be Martha, over to watch Molly so that I could follow. To hear the rest of this episode and get other exclusives, become a patron to Broken to Brave at patreon.com. You can also follow my blog at brokentobrave.com for even more insights and engaging content. Links are in the show notes. Broken to Brave is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted and written by me, Martha Southgate. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something brave.